Our finale begins with a busy dial tone. After a few seconds, there's a click as the person hangs up and the camera pulls out to show Blake inside a mantle phone booth. She sighs in frustration and steps out, where Yang is leaning against the frame. "No dice?" she asks. Blake shakes her head. "It's strange. You'd think the connection would still work if it had emergency power." Yang glances back at it disappointedly with a shrug. Technology is haunted. There's a rudimentary, crude ringing noise, more of an alarm than anything, and it takes the girls a moment to realize it's their scrolls. Opening up Yang's, they receive a garbled message from Pietro. We then cut to Clover, Crow, and Junior receiving the same message halfway through loading Tyrion into a prison transport.
"To all Atlas personnel, this is a Priority 1 emergency. You are to report in through designated backup frequencies. Equipment lockers are being deployed to all Huntsmen as per Protocol 2401, and fleet assets are moving into position."
The end of the report cuts over to Flint and Neon, outside of a club with a group of other partygoers. They look up to see dozens of lockers being launched from both the top and bottom of Atlas, raining them across both cities. We jump to Ruby and Weiss, already in a locker room that's now mostly devoid of lockers, recovering their own gear and outfits while more lockers launch around them. As they do, an additional message from Pietro plays.
"To the Huntsmen receiving this message, you are to return to Atlas immediately and await further orders from General Ironwood. Transports have been dispatched to your locations."
The scene comes back full circle to Blake and Yang, listening in. As the message ends, their lockers slam down into the streets a few meters away. Both move towards their lockers with mounting concern. "I take it this is more than a blackout," Blake says, opening her door and pulling out Deadly Nightshade. Yang opens hers to pull out Emberselica. "It better be, or else Ironwood's paying my parking tickets." As the two pull their jackets and pants out, a cold gust rushes by them, causing them both to shiver. They pause and look at each other, then back the way they came. Before Blake asks, "Phone booth?" and Yang nods. "Phone booth." As the two head back towards the booth to change, the camera pans up to the sky, where a glimmering green light is ascending towards Atlas. We cut over to Penny carrying CL in her arms, both wearing tense expressions as they approach. We end the scene on a quick montage of Junior in the back of the prison transport watching the gleefully restrained Tyrion, Crow and Clover in the cockpit with the pilot, Yang, Blake, Neon, and Flint in the back of a manta being carried up to Atlas, and Ruby and Weiss slapping on the last of their gear before taking off out the door of the locker room. We then move over to just outside Ironwood's office, where Winter is waiting patiently in the low light of emergency power. Ironwood himself approaches, eyes dark and face stony. A medic is following behind him, struggling to put the final touches on a sling on his bad arm, before Ironwood waves the man off with a cold fury. Winter winces at this with a start, but doesn't speak, instead quietly following him into his office as he enters. "We need to get primary communications back online." His words are focused and angry. "In the meantime, I want every boot we have on the ground trying to keep the peace. Without power..." Ironwood trails off as he approaches his desk, slowing to a stop and leaving Winter confused. The camera pans down to a singular obsidian queen, smack dab in the middle of his desk. Appearing beside him, Winter sees it as well and inhales sharply in surprise. Gently, Ironwood picks it up, face trembling as he examines it. Both are stunned silent by its presence before Winter's scroll chimes. Visibly startled by the noise, she checks the notification, eyes widening. Hesitantly, she looks at Ironwood, then back to the screen, tapping away at it more and more despondently. Swallowing, she steps forward to show him the notification with a disquieted, "Sir?" We peer up through the screen as he reads it, seeing that it's a notification that the main vault facility has been accessed. By Ruby Rose. Or, more accurately, her keycard, but neither Ironwood nor Winter know that. In a low voice, he asks, "Cameras?" Reluctantly, Winter pulls up the camera in the vault elevator's retinal scanner, showing Ruby Rose. Staring at it, Ironwood is silent, but his voice trembles as he mutters, "This whole time." His good hand jerks to the table, smashing the queen underneath. His next words are orders. "Specialist, link up with Penny, go to the vault, and secure the maiden." Glancing over his shoulder, he adds, "If the situation escalates." Winter locks eyes with him and remorsefully nods. "Yes, sir." Turning on her heels, Winter marches out the door, leaving Ironwood alone. Pulling his hand, filled with glass shards now, from the table, he pulls out his own scroll and loads up the contact profiles for the 5 members of Strike Team 32. We cut to the airship carrying Neon, Flint, Blake, and Yang. The two pairs sit across from each other, scrolls out trying to call their other teammates. Yang leans back in frustration, blowing at a lock of her bangs as her call to Ruby fails again. She's still not picking up. Blake continues to stare at her screen with determination, even though her own call to Weiss fails. We're just out of peer-to-peer, give it time. Yang grunts an affirmation and attempts to call RWBY again. Across the row, both Neon and Flint's scrolls chirp with a new message, which catches everyone's attention. The two look at the messages, confused at first, and then frowning sharply. They glance warily at Blake and Yang, and send furtive looks to one another. Blake and Yang catch on to the awkward shift in demeanor, prompting Blake to ask, "Is something wrong?" Still trying to communicate silently between each other, Flint and Neon reach a resigned decision. Sighing, Flint stands and pulls out a pair of restraints from one of the Manta's storage compartments. "So, this isn't gonna be easy, but I'm gonna have to ask you guys to put these on." Blake and Yang's eyes go wide, Yang bolting upright in her seat. "Excuse me?" Neon winces, adding hopefully, It's probably just a misunderstanding. Put them on and we'll clear everything up with Ironwood." Blake's eyes become sharper, easing into a more rigid posture alongside Yang. "What are you talking about?" Yang adds on to that. "What did Ironwood say?" Flint, face scrunched, growls out, "Just do it, okay? Make everything go a lot smooth." Yang stands. "Like hell? Tell us what's going on!" Neon jumps to her feet to match Yang just before Flint snaps. "We can't. All we can say is that you're under arrest." Now Blake stands, ears pinned back, confused and angry. "For what? What did we do?" Flint grabs at his brow in frustration. "It's not you. We can't say. It's classified." Neon begins to bounce with an almost pained energy, trying to keep her mouth shut, but it's clear there's something she wants to say. Yang shakes her head, eyes flickering red. "Bullshit! We didn't do anything wrong!" Neon finally cracks, blurting out, "Then why did RWBY open the vault?" You can hear a pin drop over the silence in the Manta's cabin. Blake is the first to react. "What?" Flint sends a glare to Neon, but it's lacking bite since it seems he's just as conflicted. "Like we said, probably a misunderstanding," and Yang responds, "He's having us arrested. Is he arresting RWBY and Weiss too?" Neon shrugs. "I mean, she is the one who opened the vault," and Flint cuts her off. "Neon, shut it!" Yang's eyes turn red as Blake steps forward. "RWBY, why would she do that? Maybe there's an emergency. Isn't that why he gave her the card?" Flint shrugs back. "How many times can I say, we don't know?" Yang shuffles forward imposingly. "When it doesn't end with you putting us all in cuffs for no reason." Neon puts her hands up. "It's just a precaution, I'm sure. We're just following orders." And Yang replies sharply, "They're crap orders and you know it." Neon, a little harsher, shoots back. "You can't just pick and choose." Blake steps up a little more. "Yes, you can! We're people, not robots!" That comment makes Neon grimace angrily, and Flint shakes the cuffs in front of Blake and Yang, biting. "We'll sort it out later, just put the damn cuffs on, or else." Another silence, and very slowly, Blake reaches for the hilt of Deadly Nightshade. Yang activates Ember Celica, and Neon reaches for her nunchaku. Very tersely, Yang replies, "No." And we're left in a stew of boiling tension. A moment later, the four all move, breaking the standoff. Flint tries to snap the cuffs onto Yang's wrist, and only manages to scrape it against the armor of her weapon before the other fist slams into his face. Neon tries to rush forward to assist him, but is forced back by Blake launching deadly at her from her sheath. Neon manages to kill her own lunge to dodge out of the way, planting a heel and spinning one nunchaku into Blake's face. This leaves her open as Yang delivers a spinning roundhouse kick to Neon's stomach, flinging her into the rear of the cabin. Flint, recovering quickly, takes the opportunity to draw his trumpet and blasts Yang from his lower position, launching her into the corner of the wall and ceiling. Pinned, Yang flexes her wrist and shoots an explosive round at the Manta's door, blowing it off and causing the airship to rock sharply, taking Flint off his feet. He nearly falls out, but Neon catches him. Yang is less lucky, tossed out by the force. Blake, without hesitation, allows herself to be pulled out the door and catches onto Yang. She fires deadly into the side of the Manta, tethering the two to the airship with her ribbon. As the other two scramble to find their footing, Flint leans against the door, raising his trumpet to blast Yang and Blake. Yang, twisting in Blake's arms, fires a round that bursts in Flint's face, shifting his aim and causing the blast to go into one of the wings. The wing crumples under the attack, bursting into smoke and sparks, and the Manta begins to list to one side and sink as it approaches the Academy. In the cockpit, the pilot struggles against the controls, unable to stabilize their flight, and he yells back, "We're going down! Brace for impact!" The two barely manage to hear him over the sounds of the rushing wind, but they for sure notice how the entire ship has begun to spin in an alley-around roll. Yang and Blake are dragged through the air as the Manta barrels right for the Academy uncontrolled. A short distance away from the building, Blake pulls Deadly free, and she and Yang go flying through a lower-level window, smashing the glass and slamming into the wall of a hallway. Above them, there's a raucous explosion accompanied by a burst of light and debris raining past the window. Blake and Yang struggle to their feet, both looking in horror at the window. Blake leads off, shocked. "Neon, Flint, the pilot!" Yang squeezes her eyes shut with a remorseful grimace. "We don't have time to think about that." Pulling out her scroll, she begins to dial Ruby's number. "We better be close enough now." We cut to Ruby and Weiss rushing down one of Atlas's main interior hallways together, hearing the distant crash through the building's skeleton. They try to suss out where the sound came from, openly confused by it, only for Ruby's scroll to ring. Taking the call, Yang's face appears on the scroll, with a partially worried, partially relieved,
"Ruby!"
Ruby replies in kind.
"Yang, do you have any idea what's going on?"
Blake leans over Yang's shoulder.
"There's a blackout through the whole city, but we're not sure either."
Yang shakes her head.
"Not the important part. Ruby, you need to be careful. Neon and Flint just tried to arrest us, and we know there's an order out for you.
Blake adds,
Weiss too, if we were on there."
Weiss, over Ruby's shoulder, asks, "Why?" And Blake responds,
"They think you opened the vault."
Ruby blinks, reaching to her pocket.
"But I'm right here."
She begins patting herself down in a heightened panic, eyes going wide.
"My keycard! It wasn't in my dress! It had to be someone else!"
Weiss's brows furrow. Aren't there eye scanners to get in? After a moment of pause, Yang groans angrily.
"Oh, God damn it, Neo!"
The four girls go quiet, Blake especially sending Yang a worried glance. Shaking her head, Ruby declares,
I'll get to Ironwood's office and talk to him."
Blake shuts that down.
"Ruby, I don't think that's going to work. He wants us arrested. We just had to fight off Neon and Flint."
Weiss is flabbergasted.
"You fought them off?"
Ruby just quietly absorbs the information as Blake elaborates.
I don't think he's in the mood to listen to us."
Thinking it over quickly, Ruby gives a new order.
"We'll meet up at the entrance to the vault. See if we can't stop whatever's happening there. Hopefully we can use that to clear things up."
Weiss, wary, adds, "Or make things worse." Swallowing, Ruby rounds it out.
"Protecting the maiden and the relics comes first. Ironwood will understand."
There is silence as none of the girls quite believe the optimistic sentiment, but eventually Yang speaks up.
"Okay, we'll meet you there. You keep her safe, Ice Queen."
Very seriously, Weiss nods.
"Naturally. You and Blake stay out of trouble."
Yang smiles back wryly.
"That's our specialty. See you at the vault. Love you, sis."
Ruby rounds it out by saying,
"Love you too. Both of you stay safe."
With nods from Yang and Blake, the call ends. Not sparing a second for themselves, Ruby and Weiss change directions and begin heading down a different hallway. This content and the rest of the content on Celtic Phoenix is brought to you by the wonderful people supporting the channel through Patreon. For just $1 or more, you can gain access to the Tundra Discord server, where you can interact with me and a whole host of my fellow internet colleagues, such as the other members of Team Frostbite and the Team Jacked podcast. Become a part of our regular bad fanfiction nights that happen every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by joining our chat and adding your commentary to the reading. You can also join by becoming a member of the Celtic Phoenix YouTube channel, with the additional bonus of gaining access to a bunch of sweet emoticons during every one of our streams, such as the Team Jacked podcast, which airs every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if either of those are too much for you, you can always subscribe to the channel, enable alerts, like this video, and share it around to all your friends. Thank you all so much for watching, and we now return you to your regularly scheduled fixing. We cut to Ironwood, entering the main command center for Atlas operations, the one we saw Clover in back during episode 13. Very curtly, he asks, "Do we have primary communications back online?" One of the officers replies, "No sir. Palandina says we still have an hour before he has them operational." A second officer chimes in, "Sir, we've had a transport vehicle impact on floors 25 to 28. Fire suppression systems have been activated and rescue services are already en route." This frustrates Ironwood, but not as much as the next officer saying, "We're getting scattered reports through emergency lines about rioting down in Mantle." Rubbing his brow, Ironwood declares, "I want guards posted in every hallway. No one gets in or out without my say-so." Mobilize the 4th, 5th, and 12th Infantries, have them coordinate with the 14th Airborne and the 5th and 7th Armored Divisions. We are shutting down those riots. We cut away from them to the prison transport carrying Tyrion. Junior are in the back, guarding him, and John in particular is glaring daggers. Nora, however, captures everyone's attention, seeing something out of the narrow slits of the window. She stands to see it better, and even after John tells her to sit down, she's insistent that John and Ren also look. We jump up to the cockpit where Clover is reading a message on a scroll with concern, before Crow tears his attention away, pointing to the academy with a worried, "The hell is that?" We finally get a clear shot of the Manta crash in the side of the building, still smoking as firefighting airships are starting to converge around it. We jump ahead to the transport landing, and Tyrion being forced out in his restraints. His signature grin hasn't diminished, and in fact it only grows seeing the smoke coming off one of the campus's many towers. "Oh, what's that?" he coos. My, things are getting messier and messier, aren't they?" In response, Crow shoves a spit hood over Tyrion's head, which does nothing to dampen the glimmer in his eyes. Sighing, Clover turns to Junior. "You three get up there. Figure out what's going on, render any aid you can. We'll take Tyrion in for processing." Receiving a nod and a quick casual salute from the three, the group separates into two, heading into opposite buildings. We cut to a door opening, revealing Freya's medical ward beyond. The old woman is asleep as two figures approach. Ironwood and Penny come into focus, with Penny silently approaching the bed with purpose and disconnects Freya's machines one by one. This begins to stir the old woman, who blinks up in groggy surprise. "Penny?" Penny doesn't respond, quickly working through removing all of the equipment and needles attached to Freya, and not being particularly careful as she does. Freya winces and says, "You're being very rough, dear. Is everything okay?" Again, Penny does not respond. Completely disconnected, Penny places Freya in her wheelchair and pushes her towards the door. The old woman looks between her caretaker and Ironwood. "What's happening? Are we under attack? James?" All Ironwood gives her is a finger pressed to his lips, an indication to be silent. Disoriented, Freya presses her lips together and doesn't speak. The exit to the ward opens, and Ironwood follows as Penny pushes Freya out into the main foyer, before the door to the vault. Penny wheels Freya right up to it, and Ironwood stands off to the side of her, a commanding presence as he motions his head to the door. Freya, though uncomfortable, does as he indicates, and hesitantly presses her hand to the door. The mechanism begins to shift and change, opening just like we saw at the start of the volume, revealing the flowery field beyond and the dais with the two relics. Penny steps in front of the door, ready to enter it once it finally opens, and Ironwood watches expectantly. However, at the last moment, Ironwood's eyes widen. He grabs Penny and flings them both to the side, just in time to avoid a ball of fire that explodes where Penny had just been standing. Freya's chair is thrown aside, unceremoniously dumping the old woman to the floor. She looks up to where Ironwood and Penny are, only to see flickers of glass wisp off their bodies, revealing the forms of Roman and Neo instead. Freya's eyes widen in horror, but she can't say anything as a fourth figure approaches them, landing on the platform with a gust of air. Cinder glares at Roman and Neo. "Did you think that would hold me off for very long?" Roman and Neo stand, coughing from the smoke as he replies, "Honestly, surprised we got this far." We cut to Freya's perspective, eyes gliding between the conversation and the still opening door. Cinder is unimpressed with Roman. "Let me correct that then." Raising her human hand, she forms a fireball, intent on snuffing the two out, only for a harsh click of mechanisms to stop her in her tracks. All eyes fall to the door, which has started to close, before falling to Freya, who has dragged herself to its base to touch it and reverse the process. Cinder's good eye widens, and she turns the fireball to attack Freya, only for a gust of freezing wind to snuff out the fire. Freya glares at all three of them, her eyes rolling back as a tornado of freezing air quickly cycles around her, lifting her off her feet. Cinder tries another fireball, only for it to be snuffed out by the cold. Growing even angrier, she summons a glass blade and attempts to charge into the wind, only to be knocked back by the sheer force and covered in a thin layer of frost. Hissing, her eyes are drawn to the flowers beyond the closing door and the two relics beyond. In a Hail Mary play, Cinder winds her grim arm back and lashes it forward like a whip. It reaches unnaturally far, its grotesque form stretching and cracking as it passes the threshold. Cinder's widening eye tells us she's managed to grab something. The circle of wind expands, becoming more and more covered in frost, and Cinder yanks her arm back. The elasticity contracts, whipping around violently before snapping into place under her shoulder, revealing the lamp in her claw. The door closes all the way, and Cinder is left staring daggers at the artifact when a noise at the end of the atrium catches her attention. The lift has just arrived at the bottom, delivering Winter, and above her, floating and ready for battle, is the real Penny. Cinder bares her teeth at them until her arm is impaled by a blade that emerges from a wave of glass. Cinder lurches back in pain, Claw dropping the relic, only for Ozpin's cane to emerge from the glass as well to catch its ring. Roman and Neo roll past Cinder, both covered in layers of frost from Freya as well, but smugly holding the lamp atop the steps. Cinder calls up a fireball and flings it at them. The duo manage to get in a sadistic grin and a mocking bow before the attack hits, shattering them both into glass. Cinder can only stare in stunned rage, but she isn't even allowed to have it for very long. Freya's winds become even more overwhelming, and the newly arrived Winter and Penny rush forward to attack her. We cut from Winter to Weiss, rushing down the hall with RWBY at her side. They round a corner and make it partway down one of the halls when RWBY sees a glimmer in the distance. Acting on reflex, she throws her hands against Weiss, pushing them apart just in time to avoid a magnetically propelled bullet from hitting either of them. At the end of the hall is Ciel, lying prone, visor on, cycling another round into the rifle that's composed of her two pistols fitted together. RWBY stands just as Ciel begins to train the crosshairs over her again, and RWBY kicks out the wall into her semblance. She races down the hall, escaping Ciel's crosshairs, but we get a close-up of Ciel's eyes behind the visor, flashing gold. The world slows, and the RWBY and Ciel scope unknowingly slows with it, down to a much more comprehensible speed. RWBY is part of the way through drawing crescent rows when Ciel drags aim over top the weapon, and then pulling it off to the side to account for RWBY's momentum. The movement is slow as Ciel's body hasn't been sped up, but she manages to fire exactly where RWBY was moving, knocking crescent rows from her hands and throwing RWBY back several feet out of her sprint. The world speeds back up as RWBY lands, and Ciel quickly cycles another round. Again, Ciel's eyes glow gold, the world slows down, and she aims up at the recovering Weiss, who's drawn Mirtenmaster. Aiming for the rapier's dust cylinders, she fires, intent on disarming her as well. However, Weiss was already mid-glyph cast, so when time speeds back up, all it manages to do is shatter the glyph, which expends all of its momentum. Ciel scowls with a tch and cycles in another round. In this split second, RWBY has recovered and jumped from the floor to grab Crescent Rose with a backflip, using her semblance the entire time. By the time Ciel reactivates her own semblance, RWBY has fired 2 shots at her from the hip. The first bullet grazes the ground beside Ciel, who doesn't even flinch, but the second Ciel is forced to shoot out of the air before it can hit her. Ciel scowls harder as she has to cycle the rifle again, during which Weiss manages to pull up another layer of several glyphs that RWBY falls behind. Weiss also begins charging a haste glyph below RWBY during this, and we get a quick montage of Ciel firing and cycling her rifle again and again, attempting to break through the shield before the haste glyph can form. She gets down to the very last defensive glyph just as RWBY finishes charging and surges forward. Even with her semblance active and her mind's eye operating faster than the world around her, RWBY is still a blur. Ciel manages to get off one last shot, which passes through RWBY's blurry afterimage. Ciel's eyes widen, and we're treated to a profile shot of RWBY sweeping in low beside Ciel, hooking under her with Crescent Rose, and flinging her into the double doors behind her. The doors are blown off their hinges as Ciel goes flying through them, into Atlas's library. The shockwave of wind blows around the tables and shelves, kicking up books and equipment as the sonic boom finally registers audibly, shattering all the glass in the room. Ciel flips herself around, breaking apart her rifle into its 2 separate pistols. Kicking off a table that was launched into the air, she strafes around the now landed and recovering RWBY, opening fire on her. RWBY kips back and begins to spin Crescent Rose to shield herself from the automatic fire, twisting to defend herself as Ciel leaps around the falling debris. By the time Ciel lands, they've swapped places, with RWBY deeper in the library and Ciel by the door. Seeing something over Ciel's shoulder, RWBY fires off a round of Crescent Rose and skims behind a bookshelf, dodging another volley from Ciel's pistols. Unfortunately for Ciel, she left herself too focused on RWBY, and even with her semblance active, she doesn't have time to react as the flat of a massive ethereal broadsword comes swinging in from the hallway. Ciel is slammed into a wall, her aura flickering and the wind knocked from her lungs, and a second later, a wall of ice is formed around her, pinning her in place. RWBY comes zipping out from the bookcases as Weiss walks up to admire her handiwork, the two breathless but sharing a wordless low five to acknowledge their teamwork. Ciel glares at them, teeth gritted, and behind her back we can see her gripping one of her pistols, thumbing a safety on it that allows it to start charging to the point it heats the ice around her. With a hoarse, broken voice, CL asks, "Why? Why would you come into Penny's life just to destroy it all over again?" RWBY frowns up at CL, pleading,
I didn't do anything. I haven't been anywhere near the vault.
and Weiss adds,
We don't know what's happening, but we're trying to figure out just like you are.
CL sneers at them.
You and your friends have done enough, playing us all like pieces on a chessboard. Just surrender and accept your punishment, you traitors!
RWBY steps forward, angry now.
I haven't betrayed anyone! I'd never do that!
She falters, realizing too late that she has, in a way, by not revealing the whole truth. But all CL sees is RWBY hesitating. Eyes narrowing, she hisses.
We trusted you. She trusted you. I won't let you or anyone else hurt her!
CL's pistol has done enough work melting the ice, and she wrenches her arm free, shattering most of it holding her body. Weiss raises a shield just in time to block the oncoming shots. RWBY raises her rifle to return fire, but Weiss speaks over her shoulder. No! Get to the vault! The sooner we clear things up, the better! CL shoots her way out of the rest of the ice, and jumps off the wall to roll behind a series of askew tables and reload. RWBY looks at Weiss pleadingly as they eye the tables warily.
But Weiss...
Only for Weiss to respond. You're the fastest, it has to be you. I'll hold her off. RWBY frowns, but reluctantly turns to run.
Don't get hurt.
Weiss allows herself a fond scoff.
Get going, you dolt.
And with that, RWBY rushes out of the room. With a swing of Mirtonaster, Weiss seals up the doorway out to the hall behind her, trapping her in the room with CL, who is now reloaded and ready to go. We follow RWBY as she's rushing down the hallway, slamming into walls and scurrying over herself as she's trying to make up for lost time. Her scroll rings and she scrambles at it to answer. We cut over to Crow, holding a scroll to his ear as he's escorting Tyrion with Clover. Clover looks a little surprised when Crow asks, "RWBY? Hey kid, just calling to check." RWBY fumbles over her words.
Uncle Crow, you're okay?
Crow blinks. Why is that a surprise? The reply makes him slow to a stop.
Because CL and Flint and Neon are trying to arrest me and my team, and I thought you'd be arrested too, and I don't.
Crow cuts her off. Whoa, slow down. They tried to arrest you. Finally getting a breath, RWBY clarifies.
They think I opened the vault, but I didn't. Someone stole my card, and...
The call is ended when Clover reaches over and presses the key on Crow's scroll. Crow looks at him, brows cross. Clover, what the hell? And regretfully, Clover replies. That's none of your concern right now, Crow. After a moment of staring between them, Crow realizes what's happening. You knew, didn't you? Behind them, still restrained, is Tyrion, listening intently, clearly loving the building drama with the way his eyes move and his body wiggles. Clover responds, It's a conflict of interest for you, same as Junior. Best let 32 follow their orders, secure them, and we sort this all out later. Crow looks between Clover and Tyrion, and turns to walk back down the hallway. I have a promise to keep. Clover calls after him. We all have a job to do, Crow. And Crow shoots back. And I thought you understood what was important. That prompts Clover's voice to go cold. I can't let you interfere. Crow continues to walk, and after a moment more of deliberation, Clover draws his weapon and lashes the hook forward, latching onto Crow's leg. Crow is quick to draw Harbinger and slash at the line, but isn't fast enough to not be pulled off his feet. Rolling, Crow rips his leg free from the hook and comes to a stop in the middle of the hallway, kneeling. Staring at each other, each frustratingly resigned to what is about to happen, they lunge and we cut to black, ending the episode.